This is Marco Reus, and you're listening to the Yellowwallpod.
Hakimi. Sancho is in the middle as well, waiting. Hakimi looks like he's going to go it alone here. And he does so to devastating effect. Achraf Hakimi puts Borussia Dortmund in front, all of his own work. It's Hakimi. And he's settled it. His second of the night. Borussia Dortmund on the counter-attack. Clinch the points.
Hello and welcome to episode 295 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's 2-2 draw against Werder Bremen, the 2-0 win away to Slavia Prague in the Champions League, and we will preview tomorrow's game against SC Freiburg. And if we have time, we'll talk about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and his Twitter fingers. And for all that and more, join me, Konstantin Eckner. Hello, Konstantin. How are you doing?
Hello, Stefan. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very much enjoying the impeachment sweepstakes here in America. And maybe someone who is also enjoying that, I don't know, Matthias Zug. Hello, Matthias. How are you doing?
Hello, Stefan. I'm doing well. The weather's fantastic in Colorado, and I'm glad I no longer live outside of Washington, D.C., because it would just annoy the ever-living crap out of me.
Yeah, that's very fair enough, I believe. Unfortunately, this episode does not have a sponsor, so anyone out there, please go to patreon.com/theyellowwall and sponsor us ASAP. But in the meantime, we have a lot of things to get to. Borussia Dortmund, as I said earlier, drew 2-2 against Werder Bremen. I thought the game was quite exciting, and Lucien Favre actually made a couple of changes after Konstantin and I demanded that. In the previous episode, we actually saw a change on the double pivot. We had Dahoud starting next to Axel Witsel. We had Mario Götze starting for the first time up front instead of Paco Alcácer, and there were a couple of changes at fullback. Lucas Piszczek again in the starting lineup, and Achraf Hakimi going to the left side, and of course, Julian Weigl replaced Mats Hummels, who was injured with a back injury. So, Konstantin, before we talk about the game, what did you make of the lineup? Did you like what Favre thought before the game? His plans, I guess. Did you see what the idea behind this lineup was?
I don't know his plans because, I don't know if it came down to just changes to rest some players and give our players, especially Dahoud and Götze, who haven't played like anything, anytime. So why not? I give them a chance to prove themselves. I guess that might be what Favre's thinking was. Maybe saw some tactical leeway to outmaneuver Bremen. I don't know. I very much doubt that's what's going on right now. So yeah. It's
how presumptuous of you.
All right. So I guess Dahoud did well. Götze was fine. So I guess it was. I just liked to see these two guys back on the pitch, playing or having some playing time for Borussia Dortmund. Because after all, you got a deep bench, but you don't make use of it that much, which is a shame actually. So yeah, especially Götze. After he played what we call Rückrunde, a great second part of the season before the summer. So I thought he would be one of the crucial parts of this team this season, but he isn't. He's just a bench warmer. Dahoud is a bit of a more difficult case, but still, he's just a bench warmer at this point. And so I guess, I know it's just a waste of talent, to some extent. I understand that maybe, especially in center midfield, there are players ahead of Dahoud, just because they are more reliable defensively. But still, other teams would sell their grandma just to get someone like Dahoud in center midfield. And it's not like Borussia Dortmund is very much ahead of those teams. So yeah, it was just a nice touch to see some of our players on the pitch.
That being said, we do not condone human trafficking on the Yellowwallpod. But Matthias, I know you're a big Mahmoud Dahoud critic, but I personally thought this was one of the, I guess you can say, rare good performances by Dahoud. How did you view him with since you're one of his bigger detractors?
All right. First of all, I need to correct something here. I'm not a Dahoud hater, as some people say. I expect a lot from him given his early promise. I have given up on that promise, because if he hasn't shown it by now, I just don't think he'll ever be that level player. That being said, I thought he played very, very well. It was a good change of pace for everybody, including himself. Do I think he should be a nailed-on starter for the future? Absolutely not, because I just don't think he can do this consistently enough to warrant it. I'll be more than happy to be proven completely wrong if that's the case.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was nice to see the drive forward that he has and obviously brings to the table in any game. And yeah, he nearly scored what would have been a very nice assist from Mario Götze right before halftime, but Pavlenka made an amazing tip off the boot save if you want. Otherwise this game might have already been decided before the break. But it started with Rashica or Rachica, I don't know how you pronounce him, pouncing on a Dortmund error, very rare one of Axel Witsel losing the ball right after winning it, which is just problematic for any football team. And Hakimi, I think, was out of position, and Manuel Akanji was also not where he could have done anything about that shot. So, Konstantin, do you really think there was a big mistake by Dortmund, or just, a lucky, I don't want to say lucky because Bremen forced a turnover, but just a lucky break for them to catch Dortmund a bit off guard there?
Just a slight decision-making error by Axel Witsel, and nothing more than that. He just wanted to turn his body into David Larsen, and he just misjudged the distance to Larsen, so he wasn't able to turn his body into him and covered or protect the ball. Didn't work out, and I think it was Larsen, right? And then a
yes,
pretty good pass over the top, or basically over the top, like a lob pass to Rashica. So yeah, I mean, they just, I have to say, I mean, Bremen, they had, or they still have, a lot of injury trouble, and just, when you get a situation like that and get a chance like that, you better take it, and they did. I mean, it was, like, from a technical standpoint, it was pretty well played, after Klaassen got the ball, and, so, yeah, all power to Bremen, basically. Why not? I mean, exploit the chances you get, especially playing at Dortmund, which is one of the tougher challenges for every Bundesliga team during a season. So yeah.
I mean, I have to say, we can be critical that Dortmund dropped points and now are in 8th place, obviously, but I think overall this might be a bit more cheerful episode, even though there's a lot of criticism still to be leveled at Dortmund. But I still think we're going to leave this episode looking more upbeat about it, because I thought overall it wasn't necessarily a bad performance. Dortmund, of course, equalized quite quickly with Mario Götze beating Lang from a Lucas Piszczek cross, and then Marco Reus scored a bit later into the second half, I think the 38th minute or so, with another header. Matthias, we talked about that briefly before the show, that Bremen were just very susceptible to headers right now. I don't really have an explanation for it, but if Götze and Reus both score with a head in one game, which certainly has never happened before, that sort of proves their struggle. And of course there was the old set piece goal, a routine that Dortmund have conceded now a couple of times from. Just Reus, I think, was beaten by Josh Sargent at the near post, and then all Dortmund players, I think there was a picture from one camera angle where you could see that all Dortmund players are lined up on one line and 3 Bremen players are trying to get the ball and running ahead. And I think only Mario Götze was the only player even trying to get to it, but also not attentive enough to get to it. So, yeah, a classic mistake, but we will talk obviously in the next game about how Dortmund may try to fix that. So yeah, that's something that is breaking Dortmund's back right now a little bit. I think it was 10 minutes into the second half that this happened. And then, Matthias, I did not see a lot of chances from Dortmund in the remaining 35 minutes to get a winner. I remember Julian Brandt finding Paco Alcácer in stoppage time, and there was, I think, a shot from Hakimi where Torgan Hazard had a follow-up, but other than that, I don't remember anything too forceful. So that obviously is something that we should address here. So please address it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think we can agree that Bremen have become the new North German bogey team of Borussia Dortmund, replacing Hamburg. Given that this is the third straight match where Dortmund were not able to get over a draw in 90 minutes. Of course, that includes the DFB Pokal match where they lost on penalties. And actually the last Bundesliga match was also a 2-2 draw. Bremen are a difficult side to play. Kohlfeldt knows what he's doing. They're disciplined. They play well. Dortmund, had a couple of chances there at the end. Azad's chance, or that double chance, basically the Hakimi shot and then Azad's follow-up, probably the best one. But Dortmund really should have, they should have scored another goal earlier, like you said, the Dahoud chance. But really what it came down to was they shouldn't have allowed that corner. I mean, think about it. Bremen had 2 corners in the entire match. They scored from one of them. This is a problem that we consistently talk about here and that other people talk about. It's not, it's a Dortmund set piece defending is problematic. No, it's corner defending that's problematic. It's not so much, free kicks or, except for one throw in that one time against Union Berlin. But overall, it's corners that are the big problem. They showed it again, but Dortmund overall were the better side. It's 2 points lost, but at the same time, what kind of bothers me, and that's why I find the current Dortmund Twitter sphere, not the club itself, but kind of everybody around it, so nauseatingly annoying right now, is it's falling into the trap of what we always used to complain about Bayern fans being so arrogant and disavowing any quality in the opposition. Frankfurt very difficult, Bremen very difficult, and we're going to talk about Slavia Prague in a little bit, and an upcoming opponent that's also difficult in Freiburg, even though Dortmund tends to get the right result against them. It's frustrating. The result wasn't great, obviously, but the performance overall, if I look at the entire match, I don't really have massive complaints with it. The problem Dortmund are facing right now is, Dortmund have more chances to score and don't always utilize them. And it seems like the opponent, Slavia Prague notwithstanding, whenever they get a chance, they seem to score. And that's really, really frustrating. You can say some positional things. I think that first goal, I'm not really blaming the defenders because Witsel has been so lights out fantastic in not losing possession that they probably just switched off for a moment. Yes, you can't do that, but at the same time, it can happen. And unfortunately, that was a really well taken goal. The corner was extraordinarily frustrating because it seems like it's just the same story over and over again. And that just has to stop.
Yeah, Konstantin, do you have any points of criticism or points that you would like to highlight that were good from Dortmund against Werder Bremen, especially in the second half?
I mean, I like Dortmund's flow in attack. So, it was an improvement compared to some of the matches before the Bremen tour. So I guess that looked it looked improved at least. I mean, that's something. But also given the scoreline at that point, it looks like when Dortmund is behind or is not on the winning track, they play much more fluidly, much more aggressively to some extent even. So that was one of the criticisms when we discussed the Frankfurt draw, because like Dortmund was leading and then was just defending passively and sitting deeply. So of course, it wasn't the case against Werder when the scoreline was a 2-2. So I mean, that's in some from a different perspective, I could say like it just underlined the previous criticism we've made. So yeah, but still, I just like the fluidity of Dortmund's attacking style, which is just a brief of just fresh air, because in previous weeks sometimes just Dortmund looked so sloppy and also not like they would use all their potential in the attacking department, because like when you look at all these weapons, at all these attacking weapons Dortmund has, it's just sometimes frustrating when Dortmund's just sitting deep and doing absolutely nothing basically, and just waiting for the counterattacks, which then don't work out. So I mean, it's just frustrating. Of course, the 35 minutes after the Friedel goal, after the second Bremen goal, I think it was an improvement and was something promising at least. I mean, and you can be, I mean, you can concede against Werder. I think Werder, especially offensively, are underappreciated in the Bundesliga. I mean, we talked about the first goal. I think that the second goal, the corner kick, was just tremendously played by Werder, similar to Schalke's goal against Leipzig the same day. Just it's so hard to defend these kind of corner kicks. I mean, Chelsea under back under Jose Mourinho and with Lampard, Terry, and Ballack, they just, I mean, I don't know, they probably scored like 50 goals just for these situations. You know, a rather short corner or a corner kick to the first post, and then getting the ball to the second post, and they scored over and over again, and every team knew how they would do it, but still it's almost impossible to defend these kind of corners. I mean, Nagelsmann talked about the same thing after Leipzig's match against Schalke, where the corner kick was even more precisely played and much more bam behind it. So yeah, I guess you can concede 1 or 2 goals against Werder, so it was at least something to take away from the match, that Dortmund then looked quite comfortably playing down the field. But still, I mean, it wasn't enough to score the third goal. So, but still, I mean, when we talk about the match performance and separate the match performance from the scoreline, then I think it was a much more promising performance overall compared to maybe Frankfurt match or the Union Berlin match.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can slowly see some improvements, and I think it's also only a matter of time until Torgan Hazard will start scoring. So far he hasn't, but I feel like it's only really a matter of time, because even though I saw a lot of criticism leveled at him on Twitter, I thought he was doing quite well, actually. I thought he had a really good game and was often an instigator of attacks, and obviously picked up that one assist. So, yeah, while obviously the result is massively frustrating and it's a game that Dortmund should have won, yeah, I think looking back at it with a bit of distance, we can, look at some developments that are going well. Obviously, it also needs to be said again that Marco Reus and Jadon Sancho, yeah, they just look out of form, and I think it's on Favre to rotate them a little bit going forward, but maybe he will do that away to Freiburg. We will see. Both were definitely starting away to Slavia Prague, which was quite an interesting formation. I thought, I don't know how you would describe it, Konstantin, but to me it was like a 4-2-4-0 or so, with Royce and Brandt basically as the two center forwards or false nines or whatever you want to call it. And then you had them flanked by Sancho and Hakimi, and as a left back you had then Rafael Guerreiro. So an interesting setup with the Delaney Witzel double pivot, something probably no one saw coming. Slavia Prague definitely not. But yeah, in the end, a 2-0 win, mightily important for Dortmund in Group F, which they top now because of goal difference, and Inter Milan now have only 1 point. So I'm going into the next games where Dortmund will play first, I think, at the San Siro and then at home against Inter. Just very important to have that margin and maybe carry it over, and then you can basically almost already decide the group in your favor. But let's talk a little bit about that game, because I thought it was, I don't want to say sloppy, but Dortmund didn't look all too well. But Matthias, you think that's also a lot of credit to Slavia, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you can't forget this is a side that played Inter very, very hard, very well. And you can argue that Inter were lucky to get a draw in that match. Very late goal, 88th minute or something like that, if I remember correctly. Slavia had chances to score in this match. I thought Guerreiro looked very bad defensively yet again, which exposed Hummel's lack of pace, which we know is there. So you would hope with a pacier fullback that would kind of, balance itself out. But given his horrendous positioning and lack of defensive acumen, that kind of didn't work. Slavia Prague, I think, unlucky to not get a draw. Dortmund could say maybe a little bit lucky to get a win, but it's Champions League group stage. I still remember with horror matches against Apoel. So I'm perfectly fine with I'm not going to say lackluster, but with a more workmanlike 2-0 victory. That's not to say that Dortmund didn't deserve to win, but a draw for Slavia wouldn't have been out of question. I think people are looking at it from an extraordinarily arrogant position and saying, oh, this is just Slavia Prague. We should be blowing them away because we're Dortmund. Dortmund got the win, something that Inter didn't. I think Inter are kind of, for me personally, because I'm an Inter fan, very disappointing so far this season. I thought they would be doing better than they are, and they're looking straight down the barrel of not making it to the next round, which obviously makes life a little bit easier for Dortmund and Barcelona moving forward. But I think Dortmund did what they had to do. The crowd was really good in Prague. It seemed like maybe not the easiest place to play. I'm not sure. I don't really watch a lot of Czech football. I did really enjoy the preview episode of the Yellow Wall, and so I will take 3 points against Slavia Prague away from home and be very happy with it and come back home with it.
Well, the good news really is that Dortmund came away with a clean sheet. Hans-Joachim Watzke obviously gave a quite long interview to Süddeutsche Zeitung, and I transcribed most parts of it, which you can find on theyellowwall.net. Konstantin, Watzke said that Dortmund have to fall in love with results and not fall in love with their own football. Is this basically what happened in the Czech Republic?
I mean, it's a stupid statement.
Yes, it is. But
because especially as a coach, you want to improve the performance and not the results, because results often enough come down to a little bit of luck and just form and stuff like that, referee decisions. So, I mean, sometimes you lose, but you know that you're on the right track, and over the course of a season, 50 games or so, it will work out. And usually, I mean, you, especially as a coach and as a team, you can't get caught up too much by maybe 1 or 2 unlucky results, or maybe 1 or 2 results where I think, we did get away with not enough points. We deserved more, just just to make that point clear. So, I mean, usually the coaches who just look whatever way they use to just get points. I mean, they are usually battling relegation or something, but don't want to win championships and stuff like that. After all, I mean, a match at Slavia is like the kind of match where you drop points in these Champions League group stages. So I guess that was one of the more important wins for Dortmund during this season. I mean, if they want to advance in the Champions League and maybe have a quite successful Champions League campaign this season, which is of course possible. I mean, Slavia, as Matthias already mentioned, Slavia played Internazionale to a draw. They have a quite talented midfield. I mean, you saw it. Stakio and Zocek. I mean, they will play elsewhere, and they won't stay in the Fortuna League forever. So. I guess after all, I mean, it was one of the more important wins. I think, as you're totally right. I mean, when you say that Dortmund looked somewhat sloppy, I mean, when I praised their style of possession against Bremen, at least the last 30 minutes of the match, I have to say, like, the build-up looked sloppy, and there were too many unforced errors and too many mistakes that were just unnecessary and just to some extent untypical for some of the players. As for the formation or the lineup, I just found it quite interesting that Favre decided to field Hakimi as an attacking winger and Guerrero as a left back. I mean, like, I don't know. If you asked me before, and I would have probably expected it the other way around, that Guerrero is in midfield, on the left side, maybe going inwards a little bit, playing as a third center midfield or something like that, and Hakimi is of course the fullback with his speed and just how dynamic he can run up and down the lane. So it was interesting. But I mean, Hakimi scored twice, so especially the first goal was quite a sight to see, actually. I mean, it was alright, but just one of these more uglier international nights you see. But I guess Slavia is one of the teams that just make it ugly to some extent, but on the other side can play good ball. So I mean, Dortmund can be happy to have 3 points taken from Prague, and just going forward. I mean, you are ahead of Internazionale, which is basically the main competition for the second place, I guess, or maybe it's Slavia, I don't know, but it's just a major win for Dortmund if they want to enhance to the next round.
Yeah, Achraf Hakimi basically promises, I guess, life partner Hiba Abouk, who is a Spanish actress, that he will score because they are now expecting a child, which I think they, he sort of announced with his celebration, but then really announced on Instagram the next day and said that he was so overjoyed and enthusiastic that he even scored 2 goals. So good for him. I'll leave the math to other people, how many children Hakimi needs to have for Dortmund to win the championship. I thought it was interesting, in that ploy of Favre, I think worked out actually quite well, because Dortmund scored twice on a corner. It just freaking took a while to finally score the second goal. Julian Brandt with 2 magnificent assists. And he should have had the third one very early in the second half. I think it was when he sent Jadon Sancho in a 1-against-1 duel against the goalkeeper. But he had a quite heavy touch and then tried to go for the nutmeg against Kolar, and that just did not work out. So Dortmund had to wait. My big criticism in this game really is that Dortmund's positional play, especially in the final third, when they've managed to progress the ball within their own possession, was just terrible. I thought that there were too many players hiding in the cover shadows, and as you just said, Konstantin, if then the sloppiness, unforced errors and whatnot adds to that, it's just not very palatable football to watch. And I personally think that overall Dortmund should be further in their development as they are in such a game. I think that they should have players should just in general have a better positional play than they had. That's my one big criticism, but maybe, I take too much credit away from Slavia there because, yes, they defended very well. And as Lucien Favre said so nicely, they make a lot of right runs. So maybe that's what the problem is. And of course, Dortmund have never really played in such a formation that, you always have to factor in. But nevertheless, I thought really that Dortmund can play much better than they did against Slavia. So, 2 goals on the break, but otherwise it was a little bit disappointing, I have to say. I think they could have done better, but Matthias, we finally seen, some man marking. Mats Hummels said it at the pre-match conference that they've, thought about solutions, discussed it among the team about, trying to, defeat their susceptibility on set piece defending. I thought it looked quite good against Slavia, who had 6 corners and several free kicks. I don't know how many right now, but I don't think Dortmund had too much trouble at set pieces, minus 1 routine, which was just played very well. How did you see it, and do you think this is how Dortmund will play going forward now?
It would have been nice if anybody, I don't know, over the last 12 months would have brought up corner defending ever. So I'm glad they finally stumbled across something that might work. No kidding. If what was there before wasn't working, you obviously had to change something. Here's my bigger question is, what took you so damn long? Seriously.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's obviously just speculation, but I'll invite you to speculate now with me, Matthias. Do you think that's down to Mats Hummels just putting his foot down and saying, folks, we need to change something here?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Possibly because it never got changed before. You would have thought that something would have happened, I don't know, in the summer at some point to go, hey, that thing that keeps happening where we keep on conceding goals? What's it called again? Oh, yeah, it's a frickin' corner. Let's change something. Nah. And now, maybe the Werder Bremen match was that straw that broke the camel's back for the millionth time. And they did something with a little bit more man marking that seems to work because you won't have that recurring nightmare of yours, Stefan, where the entire Dortmund defensive line in a corner is standing, between kind of the I don't know, just around the penalty spot, and then you've got 4 Werder Bremen players standing alone in front of Roman Bürki, who's going, shit! Not again. So no, it's very pleasing to see, and hopefully, even though, like you had said before, they'll probably still concede from a corner occasionally because that's just the probability of it. The fact that they didn't against Slavia Prague shows that it's a massive improvement, and hopefully then matches like against Union Berlin or Werder Bremen, you get a completely different end result.
Yeah, I hope so, going forward, that Dortmund can massively improve on that. I mean, the big problem for Dortmund in the second half of last season was obviously their defensive shambles, let's say. The average goals conceded in the second half of the season was 1.56 compared to the Hinrunde, which was just 1.11 or so. So that's just a massive gap, and right now in the Bundesliga it's also 1.5, obviously, with 9 goals in 6 games. In the Champions League, of course, still without a goal conceded, so that's nice. But it's obviously worrying, and the thing Dortmund really have to improve the most. If if you bring down the average to 1.1 again or 1.2, I think Dortmund will win so many more points. So, this is really where all the improvement has to go. But, I don't want to talk too much about the defense now, Konstantin, because we saw a novelty, at least in the Dortmund lineup, and that was a double attack line, whatever you want to call it, by Julian Brandt and Marco Reus. A, how did you like it? And B, would you expect the same against Freiburg? Because, Paco Alcácer is still out with, Achilles problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that different to what they usually play. Quite frankly, I mean, on paper it looks differently, but it's just not that different. The only thing is if they play in a 4-2-3-1, Royce tends to drop a little bit deep, sometimes too deep actually. In our cases, he's higher up the pitch and basically playing as a secondary striker. So, it's just one thing if you play a more of a 4-4-2 style of style formation, is that just, especially the two players in the middle, like in this case, Brandt and the Royce, the two players up front, they have to keep an eye on basically the space between them and the center midfields, because there's usually a pretty big, or there can be a pretty big hole, particularly when you got players like Delaney and Witzel at center midfield, who aren't like fond of just moving forward that often. So that's basically something you have to keep an eye on. You can also use, of course, one of your wingers, but Sancho is not the kind of guy who slips into a number 10 role that easily, coming from the outside, so that won't work. So that's just it. I mean, you can play with more of two basically secondary strikers and not with one center forward, or you can have someone like Paco Alcázar, who is just a little bit more of a traditional striker, and so I'm a little bit more of a target player. It doesn't change too much actually, especially with Alcázar, because he's also someone who has to be involved with ground passes and not much with high long balls or something like that. So if you play him, or you play two false number 9s or something, it doesn't change too much in terms of how Dortmund builds up and what kind of passes they use. It's not like when Alcázar's up front, Hummels is, playing these long balls, or like 10 of them during a match. He doesn't play any of them actually. So yeah, it's a little bit of a twist. I mean, on the other end, you can ask why Mario Götze wasn't featured in the lineup against Slavia. I mean, that's something I was wondering about. I mean, what the thinking behind that decision was, what Favre's thinking behind the decision was, to drop Götze once again after he had a decent performance against Werder. So I don't know why. I mean, especially a system like that with two false 9s, it's right in Götze's ballpark actually. So yeah, it's just strange to come back to the Götze situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think literally everyone expected Mario Götze to start with Alcázar being out, and the way he played against Bremen, and Favre said before the game then, oh yeah, we play every 3 days and we have to rotate a lot. Yeah, well, that frickin' doesn't apply to Mario Götze, right? Who just had one start. I mean, come on, that's a bullshit answer. So, yeah. So I really do wonder if we would see, if Favre actually gives Royce a frickin' rest for once, if we see Brandt and Götze together forming a false 9 duo, or whatever you want to call it. Matthias, what do you think? And Konstantin said before that Mario Götze doesn't pick up his form very early in the season, but we saw against Bremen he clearly is ready to play. So is this something you would like to see, a Brandt Götze double attack system in a 4-2-4 or whatever?
Well, it would definitely make life interesting for opposition defenders, unless, of course, you're playing against a side that sits really deep, because I just don't see that really happening. If they're going to sit really deep and not move, then I don't know if that's necessarily what you need. As far as Götze goes, we're seeing a replay of last season, where they're slowly bringing him back to form and to play. Obviously, nobody here and nobody on Twitter is a team doctor for Borussia Dortmund, and knows the ins and outs of his health situation. And maybe this is exactly what they need to make sure that he can play all the way until next spring, and reproduce some of the great performances he had last season. So I understand the consternation about him not playing, and then have, if you have someone like Royce up top, which never really seemed to work previously. But at the same time, I think I will side with the club on this one and go, okay, maybe it's just a matter of making sure he's 100% right, physically and health-wise, and not to overstress the player. I don't know. It would be nice if a comment along those lines would come from the club, but I doubt it ever will. Also because of, possible doctor-patient confidentiality type things. So, just wait and see. It's still super early in the season. I'm not overly concerned. If we run into the situation before and after the winter break, then I'm going to start to get a little bit more worried about it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But obviously, Mario Götze is a very prominent player, and there will be a lot of headlines around him. But I think we can close the Slavia Prague discussion now and move over back to the Bundesliga, where Dortmund play against third place Freiburg, who are in quite the form right now. And it's good for Freiburg to have a very good start, because it's not the first time that they do and then sort of plummet down the table again later. But I personally like Freiburg and like to see them around in the Bundesliga. And for this to happen, they need to play well. Konstantin, what makes Freiburg so strong this season so far?
So it's kind of like the Freiburg case is somewhat strange. I mean, they don't play that much better than other teams in the league.
It's very tight in the Bundesliga. So
yeah, it's very tight. It's very tight. So I mean, 1 or 2 points more, and and you are third, or maybe you are eighth. So comparing Dortmund and Freiburg right now, but Freiburg just, as in previous seasons, like to play down the wings, like to get those quick, dynamic fullbacks or now wingbacks involved. Right now, especially Christian Günther is like in the form of his life. Also captaining the team, will be captaining the team against Dortmund. Jonathan Schmid on the other side. I mean, both are really, really quick on their feet and can make these runs and have stamina for 90 minutes. So, they are pivotal for Freiburg, as is the back line. Just safe build-up plays, not many turnovers. So that's why, Freiburg don't make these mistakes, which would usually cost them a couple of points. Right now, they don't make them. And their overall system is just quite similar to previous seasons. Why? Because Christian Streich doesn't change that much. I mean, his philosophy is that like maybe the players will change because we have to sell some, or some will just leave, and we have quite a turnover from year to year. My system will never change, and it will just be basically the same. So if new players come in, they will just be integrated into the existing system. Only thing is, in terms of like the formation, he changed from he played back three last season already, but the 4-4-2, which was quite similar to Favre's 4-4-2 at Gladbach, by the way, he get away from that a little bit and now plays.
It's more 3-4-2-1 now, right?
That's what I wanted to say in the second. Yeah, now plays with a back three, and especially up front. It's interesting that right now Niels Pedersen is the starting center forward, not Luka Waldschmidt, which is of course the more talented and more promising center forward prospect, but Pedersen will probably play up front against Dortmund, and he has two secondary strikers behind him, Grifo and Höhler probably, or maybe Haber. So two agile players who will try to roam between the lines, and I think especially for Dortmund, I mean, I think they will be able to defend most of these wing attacks, especially like with Hakimi and Piszczek on either side. I mean, I guess they will be fine, I guess. Because there's not a speed advantage for Freiburg. I mean, in our matches they have the speed advantage, and not against Dortmund. But what will be interesting is how Delaney and Wissel will defend that space right behind them, or right between them and Hummels and Akanji, because that's like the sweet spot for someone like Höhler. And maybe Harbour or Grifo, they will be in the in between there, and maybe at one point they will be unmarked. One of them will be unmarked, and then they will cause some havoc. So that will be interesting in terms of how you defend against Freiburg. And I mean, for Dortmund, they will be able to score 1, 2, 3 goals. They are always able to score these kind of no matter who's the opponent. But what about defending Freiburg's style football? And that's like there are two things: wing attacks, and of course defending these two secondary strikers who are just behind Petersen or maybe Waldschmidt down the line during the match. So that's interesting to see. And I mean, it comes down to really being aware, like pretty tight zone coverage, occasional man-to-man coverage. That's like what you have to do against Freiburg, and not like making a short nap, because then someone like Höhler will just break through.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because if Witsel and Delaney play, which I personally expect, they will have Grifo and Höhler basically, if Dortmund have the ball, will put them in their cover shadows, or will try to, and Höfler and Haberer will be just there to, basically build the pressing traps, or whatever you want to call it. Freiburg aren't the most aggressive pressing team in the Bundesliga right now, but, they lay out traps very well, I think. And so, the double pivot will be pivotal for Dortmund, Konstantin, but in the past, Dortmund have struggled in games, especially away from home, when their midfield has been marked out of the game. So, what do you presume will be the solutions, or would be the solutions, to play around that in midfield, and how do you think Dortmund should go about their business? Do you expect a lot of long balls from Hummels in the path of Hakimi or whoever, or what do you think is going to happen? And will Freiburg stretch out the game, make it as long as Köln, for example, did?
I mean, usually I would say yes, but given the history of Dortmund-Freiburg matches, you never know, because usually Freiburg just concedes 3 goals within the first 15 minutes and the match is over. So of course the current Freiburg side is improved compared to some of the previous Freiburg sides, but still, I mean, it's Freiburg. There could be
they still have Dominic Heinz in defense. This can't go well against Dortmund, or shouldn't at least.
Yeah, but they have also Lienhardt and Koch, so they make up for Heinz. No, but what you have to do against Freiburg is basically don't play down the middle. I mean, you got Günther and Schmid on Günther on the left, Schmid on the right side, Freiburg's right side. But they are basically defending these sides alone. Either they drop back and play like a back 5 basically, or they are positioned a little bit higher up the pitch. But usually you got on Dortmund's right side, you got Piszczek and Sancho, so you play quick passes to Piszczek or even Sancho right away, and use these short-term 2-on-1 situations a lot. Usually, what Dortmund problem is, you can't really get these fullbacks involved in the early build-up. Against Freiburg, you can. So, and you can get someone like Piszczek basically playmaking Dortmund's attacks from the right side. And then, using Sancho as his partner on the right, and maybe just playing down the line, or with Sancho in the half space. So it depends a little bit. I mean, someone like Sancho is really, really smart in positioning himself in the half spaces. So that could work out basically against Freiburg. So that's what you should do against them. either force them to let the wingbacks advance and then have some space behind them, or just force them to play a deep back five and not pressuring Dortmund that much, so Dortmund can advance comfortably. Of course, then you play against a back five deep in Freiburg territory, which will make the game very dragging, and will ask Dortmund to be very patient. But I mean, from experience, they have learned to be patient, because that's something they have to be all the time.
I think the last time Dortmund traveled to Freiburg, we saw actually a similar scheme where I think either Piszczek or I don't know who the left back was, but you could see that when Dortmund had a turnover, they recycled the possession very quick to their fullback and then played it long line into the into their winger, and then you had the one against one of the center half defenders. So this is obviously something that Dortmund could take advantage of, because if you win this 1-against-1 situation, then you immediately will have 2 or 3 passing options with teammates to combine further and then score or create very high quality chances. This is something where I'm looking at where Dortmund can really hurt Freiburg. Matthias, who do you think Dortmund should play in personnel? And maybe another slightly tactical question. How do you think Dortmund should deal with the, I guess, barrage of crosses that Freiburg will play and then aim for second balls? Because when I look at Günther and Schmid, I do see that they try to cross the ball and cut it back a little bit. And do you think that Dortmund will be able to deal with that?
Well, I think as far as starting up top, isn't Paco out right now, or currently out for the next match? So I would hope to see Götze up top there. I think movement-wise and so on, I'm not overly concerned on the attacking front. Defensively, shutting down those wingbacks, I think, will be one of the key things, and that's kind of where I'm concerned if Guerrero is on the one side, given his defensive frailties, let's say. Once the ball is in the air, I don't really have any concerns. You've got one of the strongest headers of the ball and defensively against high balls in terms of Mats Hummels in there. Whether it's Akanji or Zagadou in there, maybe Akanji a little bit better than Zagadou if we look at past performances, but I believe in the young Frenchman, at least when it comes to that. I'm not overly concerned about that. Like you said, the concern is more kind of that second ball, and if it's Witsel and Delaney behind there in that kind of double pivot, they'll have to track back and kind of clean some of that stuff up. Again, given the workhorse mentality of Delaney, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. He just can't let himself sit in the wrong position and get overrun. What that tells me, though, is, especially also because it's away from home, is that Dortmund may do the Favre thing of sitting a little bit deeper, giving up some more possession, yes, even to Freiburg. So it might be a little bit of a slow match from that perspective, because I don't know if Christian Streich necessarily wants to go full bore, knowing how deadly Dortmund are on the counter, no matter who is at the top. So I would say I wouldn't be surprised if it's the kind of match where you don't see 20 shots on goal or shots from both teams combined. I think that will be significantly reduced. But if you're able to cancel out those wingbacks, get in behind with pace, then I could also, like Konstantin said, given previous matches, Dortmund up 3-0 after 20 minutes, and that's all she wrote. The one thing, though, I do want to kind of mention is Freiburg are very impressive given how well they've started, like you've mentioned, Stefan. But if you look at against whom they've gotten the results, to me, it becomes a little bit more relative. I mean, they beat Mainz, who are 16th. They beat Paderborn, who are 18th. They lost to Köln, who are 17th. They beat Hoffenheim, who are 12th and are dreadfully boring. They drew against Augsburg, who are 13th, and they beat Düsseldorf, who are 14th. They haven't played a top half of the table side. They've only played against the teams that are struggling in the Bundesliga, and they've got Union Berlin coming up soon as well. So, I mean, they've played the bottom half of the table, also with Werder Bremen coming somewhere in there. Dortmund's really the first quality opposition that they face this entire season. So that, for me, we'll see if Freiburg are for real this season or if it's more kind of regressing back to the mean of who they really are and where the quality of the squad really is. I think Frankfurt and Bremen are better than Freiburg. They've had harder schedules. Freiburg's schedule so far has been honestly pretty easy.
Yeah, I think they might be in the top 11 or top 10 of the Bundesliga at the end of the season. But it's not like I would say they're on for Europa League finish. I just always think with the budget that Freiburg have, it's impressive that they managed to stay up for so many years now. And if I'm not mistaken, this will actually be the last away game for Dortmund at the Schwarzwaldstadion, right? I think they are getting a new stadium soon next season. So yeah, I mean it's a nice away day, I think, minus the travel, because you always have that scenery of the mountains in the background, which is nice. And Freiburg obviously is a very beautiful town in itself in Germany, which is definitely worth the visit. But yeah, so if that's the last game at the Schwarzwaldstadion, then I think Dortmund need to end their tenure there with a win. So obviously that means they will get all 3 points, which I just determined. Anyway, Konstantin, is there anything else we have to discuss in our preview for the Freiburg game? Is there anything that you still have to say about this game?
No, not really, but just I wanted to make sure. I mean, of course, Freiburg and Dortmund will meet again in the semifinals and play one last time in the Schwarzwaldstadion.
You mean in the cup?
In the semifinals of the cup, yeah. What did I say?
Yes. Yeah, no, it was just asking myself if there's any other competition where they could meet. Obviously not. So
sure, Champions League semifinals.
That was redundant of my from me. So I apologize. I guess then there's only one thing left to discuss for us, and that is Watzke versus Orber. Matthias, Mr. Watzke, as I said earlier, gave an interview to Süddeutsche Zeitung, and he was asked about Jadon Sancho's potential £20 million or euro salary in the Premier League, and how Dortmund will struggle to keep players considering the not very competitive counter offers that Dortmund can offer. And he said some players go to clubs following the money where they won't play Champions League then for years. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is playing great at Arsenal, and his heart is probably warming when he looks at his bank account, but on Wednesdays he watches Champions League on TV and is sad. Before we talk about what Aubameyang said, do you think this is a clever statement to make, like mentioning Aubameyang apropos of nothing and, just startling your immature ex-striker?
Well, I mean, we'll get to Aubameyang's typical reaction in a minute. It's a little bit of a shot across the bow. Hans-Joachim Watzke doesn't necessarily say things just to say them. Usually people say things with a little bit of afterthought behind it. And the thought there is, hey, yeah, no doubt. You can go to Arsenal. You can go to Leicester City. You can go to West Ham and make more money than you can at Borussia Dortmund. That's simply the financial power of the Premier League. However, if you are at Dortmund and you have ambitions beyond just the money, because you're rich, It's not like they're getting paid, 20 grand a year at Borussia Dortmund. They are very, very wealthy individuals. So he's saying, if your ambition goes beyond just the money and you want to play at the highest level, i.e. Champions League, consistently and constantly, Borussia Dortmund is a better place fit for you. Now, that being said, I think Jadon Sancho will play for a team that will play in the Champions League in future, be it a Liverpool or Manchester City. Okay, maybe not Manchester United, but you get what I'm trying to say, or even a Barcelona or Real Madrid. I think he's the type of player at that level that he's going to play for a club that does have Champions League football more regularly. And honestly, Arsenal, until the last couple of years, was always playing in the Champions League. The landscape of the Premier League has changed a little bit since then. So I think it was a little bit less about Aubameyang, even though he was the perfect example, because obviously he can't take Dembele because he plays for Barcelona. But it's kind of playing in that, this guy was really petulant. He was really unprofessional. He wanted his big payday more than anything else, so he can also finance his extravagant lifestyle to a degree. But, he's not playing in the Champions League, whereas Jadon Sancho is playing in the Champions League yet again. I think that's what was behind it. It's hard to say if you're not sitting there and you read context and you read emotion and you read how someone's voice may play into it versus if it's an interview on YouTube or wherever where you can actually see how they say things. But the reaction from Aubameyang kind of took it to the next level. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he tweeted, I think, yesterday actually, he tweeted, "Better for you, I never talk about why I really left Dortmund, Mr. Watzke. You're such a clown. I remember that time you said we're never going to sell Usman, and then you saw more than 100 million. You were the first to take the money. Don't talk about money, please. Leave me alone, please." I don't know if you need to call Watzke a clown, and Aubameyang conveniently forgets how this entire saga played out. Konstantin, has Aubameyang a point at all? And do you think there is another reason that Aubameyang left Dortmund for that we do not know about?
No, not really. I mean, all the reasons are out there already. I mean, they are well known. It was just, for some time, Aubameyang wanted to leave. He was of the impression that he could sign for Real Madrid, although Real Madrid never made any offer. I think after that horrible quarterfinal match at Real Madrid in 2014, where Aubameyang was stumbling all over the place, I think there was never a realm in the realm of possibilities that they would sign Aubameyang, if you remember. That was something that will always be on my mind for the rest of my life, I guess. No, but seriously, it's just that Aubameyang wanted to leave. Dortmund basically internally they made the promise that after the Hummels, Gündoğan and Mkhitaryan summer, they wouldn't sell key players anymore. Not like so many key players during one transfer window or something. I mean, they basically promised that they would hold on to their key players much more passionately, basically. Of course, then during the summer of 2017, Dembele left, who was like Aubameyang's best pal. So I guess that had something to do with that, and then he wanted to leave, and basically, he was like didn't train that much under Stöger, or like did just not had low energy during training. I mean, made an appearance in a Dembele jersey and stuff like that. So of course we know how he forced his way out, basically. During the winter transfer window, when you usually don't sell your key players. I mean, and Aubameyang was one of the key players during that time. So, but on the other side, I maybe Watzke was somewhat hurt by how Dembele and Aubameyang forced their way out, especially Aubameyang, who had a lot of history of the club. I mean, who was somewhat built up by Dortmund to become a star player. I mean, when he was at Saint-Etienne, he was a promising talent, but he wasn't nothing more than promising talent. And I mean, Dortmund had to have a lot of faith in him because there were times where he was just horrible. I mean, playing as a right winger or playing as a center forward, it didn't really matter. So yeah, of course they built him up to become a star player. And I mean, quite frankly, maybe Watzke is hurt, but on the other hand, I don't know if it's so smart to make these kind of shots, because you get into a fight, you can't really win. Why? Because someone like Aubameyang has like just a social media presence Watzke can't compete with. And sure, he can do another interview about like Aubameyang's comment. He can do another interview with traditional media, but you are always behind. And also then you like have you make comments on like an former player, and like you open up a battle you don't need. Not now, not next week, not next month, never. Basically, you need some kind of these battles. So sometimes I think Watzke has to be a bit smarter when it comes to his comments. I mean, he made other, let's say, comments that weren't like that were a little bit unfortunate. Let's put it that way. In the past, sometimes he shoots from the hip, and that can hurt you. Sometimes it can help you and can make you more sympathetic, of course, to some extent. But sometimes it just hurts your image, or opens up these kind of battles. And especially, I mean, he has to know that Aubameyang is basically like a man-child. And I mean, of course, there will be some kind of backlash from Aubameyang. And also, yes, Arsenal doesn't play in the Champions League right now, and maybe, I mean, yeah, of course, Aubameyang just watches Champions League on TV and doesn't play the Champions League right now. On the other hand, he is right now at this point the player at Arsenal FC. So he's the player at Arsenal. He's the star player there at a global brand, at a club that has global recognition, is one of the major clubs in the Premier League, with some troubles, just like Manchester United. Not the best time right now. Still, I mean, these are global brands. He gets a lot of money, and he's the star player for one of the biggest clubs or most successful clubs in the past 15 years. So, I mean, he does all right for himself. I mean, I guess it's not like he would have won like 10 titles with Dortmund during the time when he was at Arsenal, when he is at Arsenal, or since he has been at Arsenal. I mean, that's just the reality. So I guess after all, it wasn't a bad decision. I mean, and also you can't really compare him to Dembele, because Dembele he would have played at Barcelona a lot of time. He was injured sometimes. He's sloppy during training. He doesn't take his job too seriously. I mean, he wanted so. I mean, he forced his way out to play for Barcelona because it was his dream club, and now he's at Barcelona, and it looks like he doesn't really give a damn about it. And I mean, they signed Griezmann because they needed another forward, another winger and forward hybrid, because Dembele wasn't like reliable, or isn't reliable right now. So I mean, that's the way it goes for Dembele, and Aubameyang does way better for himself right now, and will be in the next few years at least. And and after that, I mean, he'll probably go over to China and make 50 million or something. I mean, there was even in the realm of possibilities during his Dortmund time that maybe he will sign for a Chinese club right away. Of course, he decided to go to London before that, but I mean, after all, he will probably go to the MLS or to China or something, and make a lot of bucks on top of what he makes right now at Arsenal. So
I mean, he has to, or he will run dry before his 40th birthday.
I mean, he can still sell some of his cars, right? I mean, of course they drop in value after a short period of time.
Maybe in the long term they'll appreciate though.
I guess, especially if they are driven by a famous football player. I mean, you will find some nutcase in London who will buy these kind of cars for like 20% over the original price. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, you're right. But I think he does well for himself. And would he have stayed at Dortmund? He had been one of the key players, but. I mean, Dortmund wouldn't have won the championship or something like that. So with him or without him, that's like it's not like he's that much of an upgrade to the Royce Paco Alcázar pairing.
No, it's a pretty good pairing. Anyway, I think that sort of concludes it. Yes, Watzke could have been a bit smarter about it. But yeah. Anyway, let's just conclude that subject because it's nonsense. I will appreciate, however, a quick prediction from you, Matthias. How will Dortmund fare in Freiburg?
I'm going to go with a 3-1 victory for Borussia Dortmund.
I will say that they will win 4-2. Konstantin?
Yeah, it will be a razor edge 4-1.
Yeah, okay, that's good as well. Yeah, so Konstantin, please tell our listeners how to follow you on Twitter and where to find all your written work.
Yeah, they just follow me on Twitter at cc_ECKNER, and that's the way it is.
That's the way it is, Matthias. How is the way for you?
Oh, the way it is for me is at Matthiasuk on Twitter.
Very well, and you can find me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can get in touch with all of us at Yellowwallpod on Facebook and Twitter. And of course, if you want to subscribe to our show in the various means, you can find us on YouTube, on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, and all the other various services like Spotify or Google Play or whatever. So please find our show there. And if you want to become a reader of The Yellow Wall, then you have to go to our website, theyellowwall.net, and then unlock the paywall with $1 per month as a contribution, which then goes into my healthcare fund here in the United States. So that is very much appreciated. And some personal news, I finally got my green card, so I'm not fucking leaving. As they say in The Wolf of Wall Street, I will stay permanently in the United States for at least the next 10 years. So that's nice of the country to let me in. Anyway, this should be
obviously the standards are slipping, Stefan.
Are they? Well, anyway, Matthias, on that terrible disappointment, it's time to end the show. As always, thank you for listening and goodbye.